Okay, so Canada's democracy is kind of broken. So there are actually lots of types of democracy. Some are just more representative than others. Imagine one where with just 0.5% more votes, a party could get 1/3 of the seats in parliament. Well, welcome to Canada, where in the 1930s, that exact thing actually happened. Yup, Canada's version of democracy means just 0.5% more votes can get you 33% more seats. That's not right. Wait, did you notice how one party got the majority of parliament, so all the control, without even getting a majority of Canadians' votes? That must have been a fluke. Well, no, actually, in the past 2 elections, a single party has gotten all the control, with even less support. These so-called false majorities have happened quite a lot. Okay, say you and 4 friends are trying to figure out what to watch on TV. Would you be okay with just 2 of the 5 of you getting to completely decide what you all watch? That doesn't seem fair at all. This unfairness on election day leads to less stable governments after election day. When no party gets all the control, they keep on having election after election because they think at some point they'll squeak out one of those false majorities, and then it happens. Even though Canadians' views haven't changed all that much, one party gets absolute power, and then another party gets all the power. Policies end up swaying back and forth instead of being negotiated and representing what most Canadians would actually want. So in Canada, elections are less fair and the government is less stable. Why? Well, first no, we aren't voting for who we want to be Prime Minister. Instead, we're just voting for who we want to represent us, locally. In principle, this is good. We can have representation from each area of the country, but it doesn't even do a good job taking into account how each region actually voted. One party gets all the representation, whether they've got a huge majority or are just barely ahead. And since we have multiple parties, a majority of people could have wanted somebody else. If the winning party gets a ton more votes, they should have more seats in parliament. And if the losing parties are just barely behind, their seats should reflect that. If you don't agree, take a look at Pierre Boucher des Partis controversiels. What one party represents this area's voters? This one. I mean, obviously, right? Over 70% of these voters have absolutely no representation. This happens a lot. Most of Parliament was elected without even a majority of their riding's votes. A voting system which lets this be possible is broken. So then the only way to stop a party you dislike from getting to completely represent your area is to hold your nose and vote for whoever has the next most votes. Voting for whoever best matches what you want splits the vote and hands victory to who you most disagree with. So the more people who express what they actually want, the worse the system is at representing voters. Parties capitalize on this. They campaign more and more negatively, so you end up wanting to vote against the party you dislike. The system encourages parties to not get along. Wouldn't it be better to have a government which represents our diverse opinions and is incentivized to work well together without losing local representation? Well, such systems do exist. One called MMP lets voters elect one local representative and then representatives for the larger region. And there's STV, which lets the voters rank to elect multiple people in a larger district. In both cases, the number of people in parliament does not need to go up. These systems are known as proportional. 85% of OECD countries vote more proportionally. They have more women elected, higher voter turnout, and actually have elections less often. Plus, the vast majority of experts say Canada should have a proportional system. So just recently, a committee with all elected parties released a report for strengthening democracy. It recommends we should change our electoral system to minimize the level of distortion between the popular will of the electorate and the resultant seat allocations in parliament. Or in other words, the proportion of votes should match the proportion of seats. It's time we had proportional representation.